On Frontline tonight, we are looking at the genocide in Nigeria, part of the Boko Haram terror that has resulted in a bloodbath in the western part of the Gold Coast of Africa. The President of the United States has been asked to respond to the terror that has been occurring in this country, Muslims killing Christians, Christians killing Muslims. The question on everyone's mind is, how should Barack Obama, the President of the United States, respond to this terrible crisis? There are a number of things that Barack Obama must consider. We spoke with Secretary of State John Kerry to get his insights on this crisis between Christians and Muslims. According to Mr. Kerry, when dealing with any major issue, there are certain values which we must keep in mind while weighing our options. In the conflict between Christians and Muslims in Nigeria, the values which we must consider are human rights and the freedoms shared by all Americans, while still attempting to make a decision which will be viewed favorably by the American people. The situation in Nigeria falls into the category of genocide, which is the deliberate and systematic destruction of a racial, political, or cultural group. The situation in Nigeria falls into this category as it is the destruction of Christians and Muslims solely based on religion. Being a free nation that has in the past made it our goal to guarantee freedom to other people of the world. Examples of this include World War II, the Vietnam War, the Korean War, and more recently the Iraq War. It is our duty here to take a stand against the systematic killing, not because it is consistent with the previous actions of our nation, then because it's unarguably the most morally sound thing to do. On November 13th, 2013, President Obama determined that what was occurring in Nigeria were acts of terrorism. Therefore, President Obama may consider sending United States troops to aid the Nigerian government in ending the conflict. In this option, he would need to use his role as commander-in-chief to the army to send armed forces to aid the Nigerian government in their time of great need. According to Secretary of State John Kerry, if successful, this would result in a lasting peace in Nigeria between Christians and Muslims. However, similar to the war in Iraq, it is unlikely that people would suddenly stop hating each other due to the presence of United States troops. This means that although they might be successful in decreasing the rates of violence in Nigeria, it would be difficult to put an end to antagonistic sentiment between the two groups, and so complete success would take a long time. The rate for success with a military plan is low, as it would be very difficult to quickly end the conflict. And the last thing we want is another Iraq war. Frontline has determined that another viable option is for the President to pressure the United Nations Security Council to recognize the conflict as genocide. Here to speak to that is the ambassador to the United Nations. Good evening, Mr. President. Thank you very much for asking me for my advice on such short notice regarding the conflict that currently exists in Nigeria. As United States Ambassador to the United Nations, I would be responsible for carrying out these actions of negotiating with the United Nations on our behalf to help stop the genocide in Nigeria. The first step of this plan would be convincing the other nations on the Security Council that this is indeed a genocide. 5 nations, which would be unanimous in this decision, is the United States, China, France, United Kingdom, and the Federation of Russia. We can count on support from the United Kingdom and France. However, China and Russia would be much more complicated because their reactions are very difficult to predict. Therefore, if all these countries did vote in favor of ruling the crisis as genocide, we would be on our way to achieving our goals. However, we cannot necessarily count on all 5 votes immediately. Therefore, I suggest, since it might take a long time, that we give aid in terms of food and other essential supplies to show our support for that region and to maintain consistency with our value of human rights. The latter part of this plan is the only part that would require consultation with Congress, and I think we're likely to receive their support since it is not military intervention. In turn, Mr. President, I would support your decision to contact the Security Council about intervening in the conflict in Nigeria and encouraging them to declare it a genocide, as long as we stay true to our values in the United States and the values of the United Nations. Thank you very much, Mr. President, and you have a good evening. What remains to be determined is what actions will President Obama choose to take. Will it be the United Nations, hopefully leading to Muslims and Christians living peacefully, or will this conflict reach a more dire end? Thank you for watching Frontline. Good night.